Okay, how's it going? I recently watched Dunkirk, the latest Christopher Nolan movie. I thought it was incredible. I think it's got a chance at winning Best Picture, or at least getting nominated. I think it should be. I'm a huge fan of Nolan. I think his movies are so consistently amazing. His weakest movie might be, like, say, Insomnia or Following, and they're really good. I think all the rest are in the IMDb top 250, and I would give all of them 10 out of 10. Like, they're so good. But Dunkirk's a different kind of movie, though. It's a World War II movie. It's set during World War II, based on real events. I made a separate video trying to explain roughly the context. Hopefully it makes sense. And probably the biggest difference from his other movies, there's not much dialogue. And it's kind of funny in a way, because I actually think that's one of his great strengths, is dialogue. Characters say really interesting things at certain points, and then there's often an echo later on where you get the same line again, and it's really powerful. But this movie's it's like an experience. It's not a like an emotional journey in terms of like you having a character and you know who they are and they grow. It's really just a raw, you're in there, you're on the front line the whole way, you know. It's kind of broken down into air, sea and land, and it plays around with time. He does this a lot. So the air part is sort of on this time scale of an hour, because a Spitfire has the fuel can last about an hour. The part involving the boats and the sea roughly existed on a time scale of about a day, and then on the beach it lasted about a week. The movie has a lot of these sort of parallel climaxes, and I think it works into it kind of adds. He referred to it himself as kind of where 2 + 2 = 5, which I think of as being like it's greater than the sum of its parts. It's a bit like if you have a movie with a climax, it's kind of nice, but if there's two climaxes and you're cutting between them, they kind of add to each other. I actually think a really good example is the Star Wars movies. They have a lot of this. The original Star Wars kind of just had the Death Star, and that was kind of the focal climax. Empire Strikes Back kind of had two endings. It kind of had Luke fighting Darth Vader, but also the rebels escaping from Cloud City, and they were kind of two separate things that were cut between, and it kind of adds to the tension. Return of the Jedi kind of has three parallel things going on. You've got Luke confronting the Emperor and Darth Vader, you've got the rebels in the spaceships trying to destroy the Death Star, and you've got like Han Solo and Chewbacca and the others trying to like fight the machines on Endor and destroy the shields. It kind of cuts between them, and you know, you've got the Emperor saying, "I'm afraid the Death Star is quite operational, and your friends have gone into it," you know, and then it cuts to them, and then it cuts to it does kind of build the climax. And even the Phantom Menace, even if you don't like the prequels, it kind of has like four endings going on. You've got Darth Maul fighting Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, that's going on, and you've got Padme and some of the others trying to take back, they're kind of going around with guns and like grappling hooks and trying to take back control of, I guess, the political, whatever, that, I don't know, the Palace of Naboo. You've got the Gungan War with the Gungans fighting the robot droid things on Naboo, with Jar Jar being so funny, so hilarious. Oh, the blue thing, whoops. And you've got Anakin. I don't care if you dislike J.B. Lloyd's acting or whatever. Hey, I actually think he's alright. Why is everyone assuming he's bad? It's a cool idea that Anakin is just such a good pilot from a young age. It is actually useful. But anyway, you've got that big thing with the Trade Federation that they're flying around. But yeah, Nolan's films also have these kinds of parallel things going on. Inception is probably the most explicit example where you have reality. If it's reality, let's say it's reality, and then a dream level, and then another dream level, and then another dream level, and they explicitly state that there's this time kind of dilation effect where each, sort of 5 minutes here is worth an hour in the dream, or something like that. So there's this ratio, and each dream level, it's warped, but we cut between them. So you've got like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, sort of tying people up while they're asleep and like setting things up for the kick. And meanwhile, they're in the snow shooting people, and meanwhile, there's the guy in the car that's kind of got knocked off the cliff and falling in slow motion. All of these things are kind of happening at the same time, and it cuts between them. And then you have certain parts where they come together at climax at the same point. There's a big kick, and it affects the others. Interstellar plays with time, like that's maybe the one that's like completely realistic. This would actually happen, that time dilation is a real thing. We sort of cut between the spaceship and then also on Earth what's going on, and there's things where there's kind of the emotions are kind of parallel. The stuff with Matt Damon, I don't want to give it away if you haven't seen it. While that's happening, there's something on Earth happening, there's some stuff getting burned, and some of the emotions kind of match, and it kind of adds to it, I think. With the Batman movies, there's quite a few things. In The Dark Knight, you've got the big finale, like sort of battle in the building where Batman's fighting Joker. You've got the SWAT teams kind of fighting some enemies and getting confused, and you've got the ships and what's going on with them, and it cuts between them, and there's like a lot of tension. The Dark Knight Rises, there's parts where the police are going underground to smoke out Bane, and then, but also you've got the football field and then the bridges, and that kind of all happens in parallel. There's quite a few things where you have multiple things happen, and Nolan seems to really like this, revealing things at the same time. And this movie has a lot of that, Dunkirk, where it's like, so what's happening, one person's nearly drowning and then someone else, they're also kind of nearly drowning, or these people are getting shot at, and it's like, the movie kind of alternates between terror and relief, I think. When he made The Dark Knight, he compared the Joker to the shark from Jaws, and I think it's a very apt comparison. I was actually thinking, though, it's kind of like a lot of any horror character, any villain from like a horror movie, where they just kind of appear out of nowhere at any time and kill people or attack, or you can see they're walking in the distance and you run and there's just threats. In this case, the Germans, which we never really see, I don't think that's a spoil. I'm not going to spoil it unless I tell you. They're just a threat, and right from the start of the movie, it's terrifying. I think one of the things it gets right is the noise. It's so loud, but in a way that wasn't like unpleasant, but just seemed to capture like how scary, like gunshots, like it's like a monster. It's so aggressive and violent. Just even if it hits something near you, it's like you can't not flinch. And I thought it captured that in a way that other movies don't capture, like how powerless you are as a human being. You're just completely vulnerable. It's kind of like with cars. I don't think people realize how dangerous, like the cars and just trucks and stuff, they're these huge metal things that are so heavy, that are so dangerous. And I think I see people just casually walk on the road and they don't pay attention. It's unbelievable. But anyway, yeah, so the bullets are terrifying any time that they happen, and they could happen at any time. You've got the planes, I think it's just, you can hear them screaming, screeching in the distance, and then it's just terrifying and feels very realistic. This movie's it has like restraint though. It's not, which I think some people might not like. Like people might think, well, what's it about? They want it to tell me or what to feel or what, but it's not really like a documentary, but it's just very matter of fact, like we're showing you this and we're showing you this, and we're not going to tell you how to feel. Again, it mainly focuses on, he called it the language of suspense, I guess, on terror and relief, this alternation. But you can feel other things. You can feel sad or like, oh my god, it's terrible, or kind of happy and like excited, I've got to mention, Nolan is so good at doing things for real. I think CGI is great, but it just depends how it's used. And I think movies like Terminator 2, Judgment Day, Jurassic Park, I probably mention these a lot. A lot of the best ones, even like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which any movie which uses special effects, it's really a big part of it is how well did you integrate it with the story, with the characters, and with the real things that you believe in. And also, did you use multiple techniques? Because I think there's a tendency, some things just to use CGI, just pure CGI. Anything you could just make it CGI and it's like, oh yeah, it's there. But it's often not convincing. I pick up on it really easily if someone's not looking at something that's actually there, if they're just pretending it doesn't work. And Nolan's really good at this. He could have easily made all the ships in Interstellar CGI, but I think almost all the shots of them are real things, either miniatures or real size, and had real light sources to get the right. And then obviously parts of it are CGI, like the black hole. They couldn't do that otherwise, but that was still done mathematically really accurately. It's in a way that had never been done before. And yeah, for this movie, he uses like real ships, real planes from, if possible, from Dunkirk, but if not from other wars that made them look pretty similar. He mentioned, I remember one ship was like a French ship used in the 50s, and they just tried to make it look like one from the 40s, but he preferred, and it was a compromise. The ship was longer than the real one from Dunkirk, but it's just, at least he's got a real ship, so people are reacting to a ship, and it's actually moving and reacting in real ways. It's cool, I think maybe 12 or so of the original little ships of Dunkirk that actually did travel across and help people were used in the movie. The movie's relentless. It's just kind of an exciting, intense, kind of scary but profound movie, because it's about real life. That's the thing. The horrors of war are just terrifying. I think this movie captures them quite well, but also the heroism and all the mixed feelings, the just humanity, but without exaggerating it. It really lets you decide for yourself how you would react it, how you would feel, and how you judge things. I think it's a serious contender for Best Picture. I don't know. Awards are tricky, I think, in general, because I kind of feel skeptical about them, because if you award one thing, you're deciding not to award lots of other things. Some years, like 1994, had Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction, The Shawshank Redemption. I think there's some other movies I can't think. 1999 had movies like The Matrix, South Park movie, Toy Story 2, The Iron Giant. What are some other? The Sixth Sense, Fight Club, American Beauty. Like, some years have a lot of really good movies, and other years are not going to have as many. So it's kind of, if you just have a single Best Picture each year, these are the flaws of awards. And there's cases where a person, I think quite a lot of great filmmakers, Kurosawa, Hitchcock, there's many artists that really barely got recognized, even though they're considered among film enthusiasts as great. But that's the tricky thing. If a movie is not appreciated at the time, Kubrick is a good example. I don't know if he ever won. And that's why I think also you get this phenomenon of someone will get awarded later on for something. Jeremy Irons is a cool actor. He, I think, won an Oscar, but he thanked... It was for, I forget what movie it was for, but the year before that, I think he was in Dead Ringers for a David Cronenberg movie, and he won an Oscar for the movie he did next year, and then he thanked David Cronenberg, and he said something like, I think people will know why, and it was implied that he knew he was kind of getting the award, not so much for that movie, although he was probably, I don't even know what it was, I'm sure he was good at it, but Dead Ringers was the one that I think people really thought was incredible, and I think this kind of happens sometimes. We realize, I think when Scorsese made The Departed, I think he won Best Director for that, but it's kind of like he's never won. I don't think he'd won an Oscar before that, and it's like, how can he not have won? And it's like, thank God he made a good movie. It's like, okay, it's his year, we'll give it to him. And I'm sort of wondering if they're going to do that with Nolan. Has Nolan made enough great films yet to be rewarded? In any case, I'm just saying Oscars, it's tricky, and it's easy to judge, but you tell me a group that has given out awards and they've been consistent and always recognized the best. But yeah, considering the movie is serious, really well made, it's also really deeply affected me. And it has kind of like a classical restraint. If I think of classical music as opposed to romantic classical music, which Beethoven was kind of on the cusp of starting that, and I like romantic music, but there might be a tendency to indulge more in your feeling. I think some people have compared Nolan to Spielberg, that Spielberg's more welcomes you in and helps you feel things, and it's nice. And I'm a huge fan of Spielberg. I mean, many of his movies are incredible, and the John Williams music is awesome. But yeah, I can see how Nolan has a bit more of especially in this movie, he's it's kind of admirable. He's not giving in to having the nice, when the characters, some of them, get back to England, you don't see them greeting their family in big hugs and yay and crying and it doesn't give in to easy moments. It focuses on its story, which is that experience, that journey, and what was Dunkirk actually like, and letting you feel the tension and the terror and the relief, which in a way I think life is about. It's all these ups and downs. I don't know if this is called being Zen or something, but I try to balance things, so I don't see the point of if something good happens, I don't get super excited. I'm like, oh, that's good, but I'm like, other good things and other bad things will happen in the future. Same with bad things. I don't try not to get so upset. I just think, that's annoying, but you know, there's ups and downs, and you just got to do what you can to keep keep things going. Got to talk about the music a bit. Hans Zimmer, I think, is really good. This movie, it actually uses ticks, which Inception used that in some of the music, and Interstellar as well, when they're on that planet with all the water and the huge waves, and it's kind of near a black hole. I think they explained something like each hour is like 7 years on Earth, something like that. That's huge time dilation. And I guess the music, I think it was actually set to be exactly 60 beats per minute, so it's in sync with the second. There's other stuff going on, but this movie again also has ticking for quite a bit, and I think it uses Nolan's actual wristwatch, for example, for some of the sounds. And it reminds me a bit of The Dark Knight at the opening. There's of course the thing for the Joker, just a single violin note, and then it starts picking up. When they're robbing the bank, the like it keeps going on and building up. This movie is like that for the whole thing. Not like specifically that music, but these kind of, and some of it's just like really jarring, and it just parallels what's happening though. It feels very appropriate and makes it more intense, and just it's also kind of almost like man versus nature. Like it's kind of scary, just a single human against just this plane fighting this or machine, and bombs, and you just you have nothing. Or you're in a ship and it gets hit and now it's starting to sink, and it's reminded me of Titanic a bit. I was kind of thinking it just has some of the similar kind of tragedy of that. I guess just partially because there's a lot of ship sinking, that sort of thing. Okay, I want to spoil it a little bit now, so if you haven't seen it, don't watch this, but I highly recommend 10 out of 10, easily. I seriously think it's one of the greatest films ever made, and I don't know if I've really had as strong a feeling to go watch something again, because I felt like a life experience, like my vision of life has changed a bit. I feel more alive, and I feel like I'm so glad I've never had to be involved in a war, but I feel like I've had a bit of that idea of what it would actually be like, and also a bit more respect for like some of the heroism that could occur and the different kinds. But anyway, let me spoil part of it. I really like the Mark Rylance. He's sort of an older man that just seems, I don't know, he has like his son and this other boy George that goes with him. I thought it was tragic what happens with George, but I could understand it. They find Cillian Murphy, I don't know if that's how you say his name, and they help him, and he's very quiet, and it's like, okay, I could understand the whole ship sunk. For all he knew, he's probably going to drown, so it's kind of surreal that he's still alive. And the older guy recognizes, oh, you know, he's shell-shocked, but then the way he finds out they're going to Dunkirk, it's like, oh, what are you thinking? It's just some little ship, you can't go, it's a war zone, you know, and you can completely understand his feeling, you know. So you feel torn, but it's like they've already decided they have to take the risk, the chance, the opportunity to possibly save some soldiers is worth it. So, well, they've decided it. I can understand why they kind of fight, and then it's just sad that, yeah, this boy gets hurt, and then he's bleeding, and then when he says he can't see, and it's like, oh, that's scary, but then all these other things are happening, and the way Cillian Murphy kind of asks a couple of times, intermittently, like, is he alright, and there's one part where the blonde boy says, you know, no, he's not alright, he's, you know, angry. And there's a bit later where he says he's going to be alright. And we've just now found out that he's actually died, which is so, yeah, terrible and sad. But again, the movie doesn't, like, stop to have some death scene or some no or some sad. It just happens, and we've got to keep going, and there's other things happening, and people, it's just disaster everywhere. It's just, this might not seem like the best of that, but like in chess, when your position falls apart, you just have to do whatever you can. There's no, or if you're playing a video game and you're getting shot at, and you just have to run. You just have to do, it's just chaos. And in this kind of a situation, you've got people everywhere. I thought it was really good at capturing just the reality, how terrifying it is without overdoing it. People drowning, people getting trapped, and just, you know, surrounded by water they can't breathe. The oil getting spilt everywhere. I thought there was a nice detail that I wouldn't think of. And then the plane crashes, and then it catches a fire, and then so people are either drowning or burning alive. It's kind of like that's your choice. It's horrible. But yeah, I really like the part where, yeah, the Killian asks, is he alright? And he sort of ends up deciding, he says, he'll be fine. And Killian goes away, and then the older man sort of doesn't say anything, just sort of gives a nod like that was the right thing to do. That really affected me, because it's powerful, you know. Cillian Murphy, we don't know much about him, we can't judge him. In some ways you might be annoyed, like he's angry, like I completely understand his character though. I understand all the characters, their actions are completely rational in the situation. Why on earth would you want to go to Dunkirk? It's, you know, you just got to get killed, but yeah, I can understand, like they didn't want to burden him more with the guilt of you've also caused the death of our friend. And I just thought it was beautiful at the end in the newspaper how, you know, again, without some big outflow of emotion, but we see his photo and he's a hero that died at Dunkirk. That really affected me. Another thing that affected me a lot was they're on the train. Again, we don't get just a sudden relief, like it's all nice music and we don't get like family and all that, but we just, they're kind of, first off, they fall asleep. So that was a nice detail. It's completely realistic. There's not, I mean, I've had times on the train just for being at uni, you know, and you fall asleep, let alone being at war, swimming, just barely trying to survive, getting shot at. I think falling asleep would be one of the first things you do. There's not much to say. Yeah, I thought the acting was really good as well, but I almost felt like the actors were like pawns in, not to take away from it, but it's almost like casting is more important in this case than the acting. I think the acting was good, but it's kind of, there's not a lot of, you know, space to sort of do a soliloquy and a big, it's kind of, you're just surviving it and you want it to be real. And it's more about, they're almost like, blank slates or everymen that you could relate to. I found one review, it sort of mentioned it was overwhelmingly male. It's just so stupid. War was overwhelmingly male. I know there were a few females there, and it was kind of, that was another nice detail that they were kind of saying, you know, here, come here, have something to eat. They were like very friendly. They were really trying to, you know, it's funny how much like morale has to be so important in war, I would imagine. But it's so ignorant to think, oh, there should have been more female characters. Like, do people really care more about diversity than reality, like than actually having a movie about what really happened? And anyone could relate. If you're a woman, you can completely relate to any of the characters. It's just the stupidest. Anyway, but yeah, go back to the train. Harry Styles says something like I could tell he's completely stressed, like we're going to get spit on, they're going to think of us, you know, we're pathetic, we're failures. I could understand that, and then that really affected me when it reminded me of a bit of Ratatouille. There's a part where the soup goes out, and the woman tastes it, and she says, you know, and says, I want to see the chef, and they panic, like, oh, it's so bad, and it turns out she really likes the soup, like, it's that moment where you don't know if it's good or bad, and they're in the train, and then the guy knocks on the window, and he thinks, oh no, he's gonna be like, you guys are disgusting, and you know, but he's actually like, and then he gives them beers, and they're cheering, and I just thought that was so, like, wonderful to just realize, oh, it's okay, people, you know, in that moment, surviving was enough. That was the victory under the circumstances. Not something to be sort of proud of in the grander scheme of like it's a bad situation, but thank God, you know, it's a miracle that they survived. I also like the part in the boat where they felt like they needed someone to get off that would help them. There were a few things that felt a little cliched, like that feels a little cliched, but it's still real and it plays out real. Because the other part with the trying to get out of the cockpit, I thought, really, don't they grease them, don't they check them? Like, it just seems like, oh, typical, like, oh no, really, just gotta make it in time, or can I get out, I'm gonna drown. But it's real, it's scary, and it could happen, and it probably did happen many times. But yeah, I liked how Harry Styles sort of recognized one of the Germans hadn't been saying, one of the soldiers hadn't been saying much, and he suspected he's German, and he was right. And then the tension, and they're pointing guns at each other, and I just thought that was very real. And again, I could understand their points of view, like that it's such an awkward situation to be in. And also the bullet holes, that was terrifying, and then go over and someone gets shot and then they're kind of moaning and they're in pain and they're dying and they're just like, be quiet, and they're trying to it's so scary. It's absolutely terrifying. Anyway, I think this is a great film. I think it's amazing, really well made, really, and just doesn't tell you what to to feel. I also really liked all the stuff with Tom Hardy. I've played a Ace Combat 5 PS2 game, and it reminded me of that. So yeah, I've never flied in a plane, but it feels really realistic. It feels like it really captures what it would be like. The ocean looked gorgeous, and just I felt like I could appreciate. It's not a movie like a romantic kind of fun, like, you know, and then this happens and this cool. It's about being real. That's what it was really like. So it's at times it kind of might feel a little repetitive, like just but that's what it's like. And then getting those shots in, and then there's a bit of leakage, and like, yes, you got them, and then they're going to eventually hit. And then some of the confusion, like suddenly someone appears behind you, like, where did they come from? It's like, it doesn't matter now, you just have to deal with it. And one of your other squadron leader or something is gone, and you don't know why, and it's like, that happens as well. And I thought it was also very cool how his fuel is running out, but he decides to keep fighting. He ends up, there's a part where the plane's coming, and Kenneth Branagh, I don't know how to say his Branagh is looking and just kind of accepts his fate, and I thought, yeah, he's dead. Well, but you know, and then it's like the relief when you see, oh, it's been shot by this guy, and he's flying with I think almost no fuel left. The propeller's not spinning anymore, and the way he sort of managed to land safely and survive, and then destroy the ship so the Germans can't use it. But it seems like, I don't know if he was going to land on that other strip, so it seems like he kind of sacrificed himself, because he kind of he decided to fight that one extra enemy plane, but now he's in enemy territory, something like that, and then gets surrounded by Germans, and the movie ends there. And I liked how it had the shot of the plane on fire, just sort of like it's over, but that plane served its duty, you know. It's about, yeah, I thought it was profound. Anyway, thanks for watching if you got this far. Bye.